perfect for you. But I kept rejecting it. And the reason why is because I didn't see people that looked like us. And I was like, this isn't a place for me. I didn't see people who were social. I didn't see people who had like friends. What I saw was just these stereotypes of these um, very nerdy men who like just drink Diet Coke and sit in basements with the lights off and just like plug away and make binary code. And I was like, that is not for me. I need to be out in the streets. I need to be not in the streets, but like I just need to be out like talking to people, and I need to find a career that fits my personality of wanting to be a leader and wanting to converse with people. Like I like negotiating. Um, I like businesses. I like what makes them tick and what makes them grow. But I also love things like problem solving. I love logic. And I didn't know then, I know now that in engineering, a lot of what we do is communicating and negotiating. And you have the opportunity, if you want to teach, if you want to demo your product, which I think is good, whether you're doing conference talks or whether you're just like demoing internally to your teammates. You have this ability to kind of learn to communicate with people, and you have a platform. And I didn't realize that all of those things that I'm interested in could be combined into one career that also makes money. So that was my reasons for wanting to get into it. I think because there are some people who are in the field just because it's an area that makes money. I think that's a great reason to come into it, because I feel like engineering is a great way that you can make money, but it's accessible to other people. You don't have to go back and get a degree in computer science to be a software engineer. I didn't. I am self-taught. You have, like I said, if you're interested in problem solving, in logic, in communication, all of that is here. If you are on the fence and you're not sure whether or not tech is for you, or if engineering is for you, it's very easy to just try it out and then see whether or not you like it. And I started it as a hobby, and I didn't have plans of switching careers or anything like that, but I started it out as a hobby, and I realized that I loved it so much that I I gave myself half an hour a day to just like, practice learning to code. And I would find myself up till like 1 and 2 in the morning every morning, just getting lost in the code. And I was like, if this is something that I enjoy so much and I can make money doing it, I'm gonna do it. So the beauty of it is that, like I said, since you don't have to go back and get any certifications, or unless you're doing like cybersecurity, and that helps. But if you're doing like web dev, like I'm doing, you can just dabble in it, see if you like it, and then if you don't like it, nothing lost. Like you had, the worst that happened is you picked up a new skill. But the best case scenario is that you find a new career, find something that you love, and a place that you can make money with a very low barrier to entry. Again,
Mm,
not my advice, but I think it's great here.
yeah. In 2024, I'm not sure that tech is a slow barrier to entry. I'm joking.
Mm, Other conversation.
But I definitely would like to go back to the very beginning because I think you touched a little bit on tech sales. And the reason why I think that matters is because, you know, I've seen many people on the podcast come through and say things about, you know, their journey in the very beginning, even if it had nothing to do with tech. So whether that was, delivering for UPS or working on the, but you can always, it's not a straight path, but you can see how that journey kind of like brought them to this moment. So I definitely want to like, so your journey from the very beginning, can you break that down even a little bit more?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the reason I got into tech sales in the first place was because when I was a little dumber, a lot younger, when I was 18 and or 17, and I was trying to choose a college to go to, my mom at the time was a guidance counselor at a high school, and her big theme for her life is to decrease the dropout rate for Black men. So she's been in either social work or education my entire life until she retired. And I'm the oldest of four, and the straight A student, and like the golden child was, what I thought I was. And my mom, basically, I wanted to go to school for fashion design. I thought I was going to be the next whatever, Vera Wang. My mom was like, my child, you are not, well, she's like, I'm not going to say no, but if you go to school for fashion design, I'm not going to pay for it. So you can decide on your own. This is the same thing. I'm not going to give you advice, but I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to do. And so I was like, all right, well, I need somebody to fund this thing. So because the reason why she was just like, I know that it's a really tough career to get into. And then even if you're successful, like the chances are low that you're going to make a good amount of money. And so I was like, I want to have a business. So I want to have a fashion business. So I'll go to school for business. She was like, okay, that sounds good. Went to school for business and majored in entrepreneurship. And one of my entrepreneurship professors was like, the best way to understand what it's like to be an entrepreneur is to start a commission only sales job. That way you'll learn to negotiate, communicate, you'll learn to build your book of business. You'll learn about the actual risk and what it feels like to have to provide value for people and have your ability to pay your rent or pay for your food depend on how much value you're bringing to your customers. Okay. So that was my entry into sales. So my first job out of school was a commission only sales job. And I loved it, like, because I was learning a lot about businesses and I was learning to communicate and I was good at it. And so that was the start of my career. I ended up getting into software sales maybe 2 years after I graduated, and I was selling a software it's a programming language. So MATLAB and Simulink. The company is called MathWorks, but the Simulink is a product that is a language for simulating dynamic systems. Every big company uses it, like, and it's used for so many things. Financial calculations. My customers were doing. This is my entry into like tech and why this is my first glimpse into like, oh, I could do this, but I'd have to go back to school. So I'm going to leave it alone. NASA was my customer. So I have like actual rocket scientists who are using our software to build rockets to get us to the moon and to Mars. I also have customers from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agent, or something like that.
Yeah, agency. Yeah.
Okay. So I have them putting together this calculation of what kind of chemicals are the best combination of chemicals to grow the largest oranges for farmers, or to calculate like these different levels of toxicity in the oceans and things like that. So I'm like, wow, it's crazy the range of things that we can do with just, one piece of software. But they all had these advanced degrees in like astrophysics and things like that. And I was like, I'm not going back to school. So, and I'm already like kind of knee deep into the business world. So time goes on, and then I decide to quit the workforce to pursue my passions for entrepreneurship. And I started a business. That business was 100% online at first. And it was a business, it was like powered by Shopify. It was a little Shopify store. And what I thought would be the most interesting for me was when I started to expand and just like cold call and go door to door to businesses to sell the products that I was selling online. I was good at it. But what I actually loved the most was learning Liquid, which is Shopify's Ruby-based language, to customize my site and make all these little widgets, make like banners on the top that were like, we're having this sale, or make marketing automation emails that go out and say, okay, as soon as somebody buys something, or if somebody's lingering on the website and they don't end up buying anything, send them an email automatically or a notification, like put a modal up that says, okay, well, don't leave yet. Like, I'll give you a discount if you stay, or if you buy something. So I found that really fascinating. And I was like, wow, I could do that, but I still didn't connect the dots because I still thought that you have to have another degree to get into this field. I ended up getting pregnant with my son, and I don't know why I say it like that. I got pregnant with my son, so it's like a good thing. So I got pregnant with my son, needed health insurance, went back to work, and was dabbling in web dev because it was by that time the bug was in my head. So I'm like, let me make websites for this brownie company down the street that I really like their brownies, or like let me redo the website for his daycare, and I was just playing with it. This is 2019. I'm using Dreamweaver, which is like, I thought this was like top of the line software. Apparently, everybody's like, no, like there's other things. But I had nobody to guide me at the time, and it was just like a side thing. I ended up moving to Georgia, and I got a job with this company called SalesLoft, and I'm selling software built for salespeople, and I'm selling to salespeople. So I ended up like just the bug started to get planted in my head. But what was really the moment for me was seeing this ad for Codecademy on Facebook, and it was an ad saying like, do web dev or you can study to be a web developer. And somebody commented like, you need to have a computer science degree. And then somebody else responded to that, and they were like, you don't have to have a computer science degree. You can do like a Codecademy, or you could just be self-taught. And that was the first time I heard that. And I was like, wait, what? You can just do that? Like, you can just do this? So I was like, all right, let me find
Like
out.
you don't need permission, right?
What's that?
I said like you don't need permission.
Yeah, like what? I can just like be an adult and like go off and right. I don't need like a degree or anything. So I was really yeah, I was just like really excited to see, like what does an engineer make? And so I started to look. I had no idea. And I'm like, oh wait, engineers can make comparable money to what I was making in sales. I was doing well again in sales. And so I decided to kind of secretly learn to code because I didn't want to alarm anybody. I didn't want to alarm my customers, and I didn't want to alarm my sales team and make them think that I was just like kind of half in, half out. Like sales is an always on type of thing. Like when you're in front of anybody that's not your family, you're on and you are selling. So I didn't want anybody to think there was any glimpse of me wanting to leave or anything like that. So secretly, my plan was to learn. I started a Twitter because I didn't have like all of my colleagues were on either LinkedIn. Well, yeah, pretty much LinkedIn. And so something's happening. It says I need to reload the page. I think I'm fine. So anyway, I all my colleagues were on LinkedIn. So I started a Twitter, and this was my secret place to talk about all of the things that I wanted to learn. And I would just post about the stuff that I was learning. Ended up building this whole community of people. Also, while I was learning at work, there was this play that I had in my head that I wanted to meet all of the engineers and like kind of pick their brains about what they were doing and how they were doing it. So there was this Slack bot called the Donut, and every 2 weeks it matches you with somebody at the company so that you can get to know more people at the company. If it matched me with a finance person, I was like, forget it. I don't want to meet this person. But they matched me with an engineer. I was like, oh, when can we meet for coffee? Let's go to Starbucks. And like, I can't, like, you want to do it later today? And so I was on it. And so I got to have all these conversations with people who had experience in the field and get to hear their stories. And it was also an opportunity for me to showcase my projects. So I would start being like, oh, well, if you were to be interviewing me, then what would you add to this project, or what would your criticisms be of what I've built? And I learned so much. I was also at the same time submitting projects to our engineering team because they had this system of like continuous development or continuous professional development, where you could fill out this Google form, and they were supposed to do 3 a month or something like that. fill out this Google form saying, I've read, and this was only for the engineering team to do, saying I've read this book on engineering, or I took this course or something like that, just to prove to the team that they're continuing to level up their skills. When they fill out that Google form with like, okay, I read this book and I learned these things, that form, like the result of that form goes out to everybody in the engineering org. And so everybody's like, it was just like this family-ish culture where everybody's like, oh, congratulations, great stuff, or they would ask questions. I got access to that link. And so I started submitting my projects. And I was using the company's API to build extensions that were beneficial to our customers, because I was working with the customers and I'm also a customer because I'm a salesperson. So I'm like, I understand our customers better than you do. I'm going to use our API and build a new view that supports this thing that all of the customers have been asking for, but nobody's been touching. And so I keep submitting things. And then they would challenge me like, okay, bet you did that, then make an API for that or make a server for this. And they just kept on having me add to stuff. So I'm proving over time, this wasn't necessarily my main strategy, but it worked. And one day I got an email from or a Slack message from the VP of engineering. He was like, are you free right now? We are having an engineering all hands and we wanted you to come. And I was like, what?
Okay.
So I pop in and they're like, we want to give you an award for the most of these, like, this called PDIs. We want to give you an award for the most PDIs submitted from somebody who's not in the engineering org. We also want to let you know that we went ahead and we opened up a junior position and we want you to apply. So I applied, ended up getting the job, and that was how I got into engineering. So this was November of 2020. And yeah, so it hasn't been that long, but it was, again, something that I was so interested in that my learning went so fast. And I just like, I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed learning the whole time. So there was no doubt in my mind that switching careers was the right thing for me, because I knew I would enjoy every day. So long story, but that's my journey.
That is such a powerful story. I mean, you touched on so many things that I wanna. I don't want to. I'll probably take up too much time if I'm going one by one. But I think two that I'll probably speak on is one, the importance of passion, right? Because ultimately, I think your passion for fashion, even though it didn't kind of like pan out that way, still kind of like brought you here, right? The fact that even though in that moment you probably had something that caught your eye that made you want to fixate on that thing, but ultimately, I think going down that rabbit hole actually really showed you what you really cared about, and I think that's powerful. Um, I think the other one that I want to touch on is also like the role of having guidance, because it is not really tech related, but I think it's still very important in terms of like just even the spirit of doing this. There's so many people out there who don't have people to guide them, whether that's family, whether that's mentors, whether that's, things like that. I saw a really sad story online, like maybe 2 months ago, where this guy went to culinary school, spent $120,000, and then he's out doing the same minimum wage jobs that people who don't even have a high school diploma are doing, right? So it's like, when I imagine that when he thought about, the prospects, right? And ultimately, like, you could still be like the world's number one chef, right? Hey, Anthony, you can still be the world's number one chef, right? Without necessarily going to college for that, right? So ultimately, and maybe that's a question, right? Like, how important is, and I think even the second theme to tie that back was the story about you just saying that, almost like permission to say you don't need any, you could be self-taught. That almost set you free to believe like you could do it, because before that moment it sounds like you didn't even know that was possible.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I heard two questions in there, and I'll answer both. So the first part is like, how important is community? I would say community is number one. Like that's the number one thing. And I forget who oh, I think it was Kent C. Dodds posted today a poll on Twitter about it was like what was the most important thing in your, not most important thing, but like how did you get your last job? And one of the options was networking. And the majority of the people said through their network. And that was me. Like if there's so many different aspects, like when I'm looking back, so many different aspects that had to go right in order for my career to turn out the way that it has, and I'm very happy with the way that it turned out. There, part of it was strategy, but any piece of that could have fallen apart if it weren't for somebody else taking action and like having being willing to invest in me and take a chance on me. Of course there's the obvious, like my hiring manager at Netflix, for example, or like he's not with Netflix anymore, but the person who hired me and gave me my first interview, it like if he didn't give a chance, if he didn't take a chance on me, um I wouldn't be here. But the reason that he took a chance on me was because we met years before that, and I was building my network without even having this whole strategy in my head where I was like, oh, I need to constantly be building my network so I can get a referral and this person, and marking people off like it's some type of like game. It was just me being myself, making friends, having conversations. And each one of those conversations turned into something that I learned, or some action that I could take, or some opportunity that came from it. And that's, like I said in the beginning, that this is why it's also important to me, is to pay it forward, because any one of those things, like if any one person that had come into my life, if they didn't exist, I wouldn't have the career that I have today, and I wouldn't have been so lucky to get here if it weren't for this community. So I feel like that's critical. The second part that I heard you say is like having that permission, or just like not knowing. Your network is important for helping you to build these opportunities, but it's also helping to fill in these gaps, because there's even like the people who call themselves like self-made millionaires or self-made whatevers, they're never self-made. Like you're not just born with all of the knowledge that you need to be successful in something or to fail at something. Like there's always a bunch of gaps that you need to know. There's stuff that you know there's stuff that you know, there's stuff that you don't know that you don't know, and then there's stuff that you don't know. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, if it makes sense, but
Yep.
um
Yep. It does make sense. Yep.
great. So, having a community of folks who are diverse, and not just diverse in the sense of like different races, different genders, diverse in experiences, like have different geographies, places that they grew up, different places that they've traveled to, different careers that they've been in, different areas that they've taken advantage of, different areas that they've failed. Having community around you where you can say, I think it's so beautiful. Like and this is kind of tangential, but like um, I built this amazing tech community on Twitter, but the majority of the stuff that I talk about them is not tech. And I have like this personal board of directors that if I have a tech question, I can ask them. But in general, I'm asking them, like I'm texting somebody today about my garden and like, what do I do about the bugs in my garden? And so like, it's just like this personal Google where you have people who, but it's better because it's not like just vanilla results. It's people who are like tried and true, but also put it under the Shaundai lens. And they're like, well, Shaundai, based on this and this and this factor, and based on what my experience is, I'm gonna combine that and I'm gonna give you this advice. And this is very like customized advice tailored to exactly what you need. And they're helping to fill these gaps for me. These gaps, getting back to my original point, having this community can help to fill the gaps for you where you're like, oh, I didn't realize that there was an option to be self-paced. Of course I didn't realize that. I didn't have anybody to talk to. But once I do have people to talk to, people who have been through these experiences, tried, failed, or what, just did some research that I haven't thought of. Now I have people that can help to educate me and fill out these gaps of things that I didn't know. So community is
That
important.
is so powerful. That is so powerful. And to kind of like extend that a little bit more, in terms of when I think about, tech in general, whether that's like, being a software engineer or even, being a project manager, it sometimes feels like an enigma, right? It's like if you don't have that community like you were talking about, the almost best way to get into it is, to go to college for, let's say, software engineering, which then means that in that case, you can take those learnings, the data structures, algorithms, everything else, and just go do that. Maybe even get an internship. So you've already kind of like got your foot path, halfway through. Or you go to boot camp route, right? Where it's not the same level, but it's closer in the sense that there's still that community of learning. But you chose to do it the hardest way possible, right? So talk to me about that experience. And, as someone who's actually walked the walk, what would you advise? Well, first of all, what were some of the most challenging moments for you? And what would you advise someone who says, you know what, I want to do it commando, right?
Mhm.
How should they approach it? And what should they look out for?
So it's interesting that you say that it's the hardest way, because for me it was the easy, like when I'm faced with all these different paths that I could take, that was the one that sounded the most practical. I shouldn't say easiest, but it sounded the most practical. The reasons were that I was am still a mother, and I can't, like, okay, I have 2 degrees, and at the time I was like $70,000 in debt because of my past my MBA and my MBAs and my BBA, right? I didn't have the money to just be, so, I got daycare. So I didn't have the money to just be, going back for a computer science degree, and like maybe this career is right for me, maybe not. I didn't have that, like, just throwaway money. I also didn't have the time because I'm working a demanding sales job. I can't just quit my job and then tell my kid, like, I don't know, you're on your own for food. I needed to continue to make money. And like we talked about before, sales is a career where you're always on. So if my customer at midnight is like, I want to buy something, I'm up at midnight making a quote. And so I needed something that gave me the flexibility to work around my family, and also like got me the skills that I needed to be able to um, get into engineering without having to pay a bunch of money. So Code Academy was the best option for me because it gave me that flexibility, and it was like $150 for 6 months or something like that. So I was like, and it was like a hobby. So I was kind of like, this seems the most practical. I also am very driven on my own, and I like to kind of explore and learn things in I can't say this is my one way of learning, because again, I did go to college for 6 years. So I've done really well in school, like in a regular school setting. But this was also for this Anthony. He was a baby. So I I I just all that said, I just needed something that was like flexible, and this was the best way to do it. So that it was the most practical, and that was the route that I took. And what challenges? Um, there was an abundance of challenges, but I think the good thing was that I didn't realize that they were supposed to be challenges. Or I didn't so at the time it wasn't like I came in with a bias and I was like, oh, this could fail by going this way, this could fail by going that way. I really started it out as kind of a hobby, and then got more serious as time came along, or as time went. So there wasn't this whole pressure like, oh, I need to find a job right now. I was also like, I didn't drop out of the workforce again. And because again, I dropped out of the workforce so that I could start my business. Lesson learned. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep on working. So I kept working. And so I wasn't under all of this extreme pressure to like find a job and just take whatever I could get. I was able to take my time, make my money in my sales, and then, kind of not like wait, because I was pushing to get people to know me. And I wanted everybody on the engineering team to know that I was the next person that they needed to look at for a junior engineering position. But it wasn't so much pressure. So I allowed myself to just be led by what I was interested in and learn at my own pace. So that was the why for that. But yeah, again, the challenges were that there are gaps when you're learning things on your own. You don't realize, and again, this is still me building up my community. There's a lot of stuff that you don't know. You don't know. I didn't know Git existed. I didn't know Fang. Like I'd never heard this term Fang before. I didn't know about like estimating and all, like how to work with people and what a pull request was. I had just posted this recently on Twitter. I was I posted this project that I was working on, and I was building projects for my son. I built like this letter learning app when I was first learning to code, and somebody saw the tweet and was like, "Oh, I saw something that you should fix for accessibility." So I submitted a PR. I had no idea what a PR was. So there's like a bunch of gaps that you don't realize until you're actually working. Um, so those are the bigger challenges. And then also I would say that finding the time to learn to code was a challenge, but the advantage for me was that I found it so fun. So I was willing to make sacrifices. And so the way that my mind works, I know it's not everybody, and this is why I don't like giving advice. I'll tell you my story, but I want you to put your own lens on it when you're applying it to your own life. I found it so fun. Okay. So when I'm learning something or when I'm interested in something, there's never like just casually interested. It's I'm dropping everything and I'm obsessed with it. And this is my life now. So any waking moment, I'm learning to code. I was like listening to podcasts on my commute to my sales job. I'm like while I'm rocking my kid and like feeding him his bottle, I'm doing little coding challenges on my phone. It's just like live, breathe, code, or eat, pray, code, whatever. It's just code. Code is life. And so I was spending so much time immersing myself in code. Like I said, I was up till like 1 and 2 in the morning every morning just because it was something that I was interested in. So I was willing to cut out a lot of things that I normally do, like hanging out with friends all the time. I still hung out with friends, but like hanging out with friends all the time. I wasn't really watching Netflix, which is funny to say. I cut out Netflix, and yeah. So that was a challenge, is just like finding the time to do it while also being a parent and working my sales job. But passion kind of, at least for me, passion was the thing that took over. One piece of advice, because I know it's not applicable to everybody. Not everybody has coding as a passion. People are here to make money. I would say if you can find a way to combine coding with whatever your passion is. And an idea might be to make a site for something that you're interested in, like you're into golf, make a site for your tracking your golf stats, or for your golf club that you go to. Or like I said, I was spending all my time with my kid if I wasn't working. So I built apps for my kid. I wanted him to learn how to read early, and he did. He was reading at like 2 or 3 because I was making apps to help him learn to read. So combine your passions with it.
Wow, that sounds interesting, to say the least. Building your own apps. I think that's kind of like the dream of every engineer. I actually saw a joke once where someone was saying, like, because you don't want to pay a $5 subscription for an app, you end up spending $10,000 building the app infrastructure, design everything else.
These are facts.
And that kind of like leads me to my next question, because it's so funny that it was obvious to me, even from like your Shopify story, that you were able to do it because you were extremely passionate about it. But you also touched about other things that I think is super important. I used to lead a nonprofit free training program, and you touched on a lot of points that were like poignant on the minds of the founders. And I think the biggest one, it almost ties back to my college, spending a lot of money question. Is like not everybody has that luxury, right, to go to college or to pause life, and they want that risk free, 90-day money back. Uh, because there's no money back because they didn't even want to put any money in. But give people that option, that choice to be able to make that decision that even if it doesn't work out, it's not mountains of debt now, that's going to stay on your record forever. But for the people that it does work out for, there's a significant upside. So I'll probably just pivot my question into like Anthony's question, right? So how much does, obsessive passion account for being successful in tech?
This is a great question. It's I'm gonna answer it with a biased view because obviously passion plays a huge role in my success, in my career. I will say definitively is not zero. Okay, the answer is not zero. But the degree depends on the person. For me, and I know this actually from my days in sales, like I've sold everything. I've sold knives, I've sold blankets, I've sold nail polish, I've sold big software that got us to the moon, and I've sold consulting services, all kinds of things. The things that I was most successful at were the things that when I was selling things that I was passionate about, because there's just, it comes out, it shows when there's something that you're excited about. And it also shows when you have no energy to give to it because it doesn't spark joy for you. So, and I'd say that the same energy plays out because, like we talked about, the network is critically important to how quickly you're able to grow, build your career, interview, and get jobs. Everybody is feeding off of this energy, whether you like it or not, right? So if you can find some passion in something, you may not be passionate about the coding part of it. You may be passionate about some other part of it. You may be passionate about speaking, and you might find it's still a tech career going into something like DevRel. You may be a great organizer and you might be passionate about organization, or orchestrating things and being the quarterback and putting people together. Then your passion in tech is, maybe you could look at project management or product management. So there's a number of different avenues that you can but I would say that finding a way to find passion, and then finding a way to well, really it's just about finding that passion, because the energy is going to, like, people are going to see that, people are going to take note of it, and they're going to want to be surrounded by you when you're doing something that sparks joy, when you're doing something that you look forward to. Then it does make all of the difference. So yeah, I hope that's feedback that or advice that everybody can take, because I know some people are here just for the money, and I think it's great, like completely fine. That was a big reason why I stayed in sales, and a big reason why I'm in engineering. Like I said, I would doodle for a living if I would make money doing it. But I found the passion in what I'm doing. So if you can find, you should find a way to find passion, and just notice the big difference that it makes in how everybody treats you and the opportunities that seem to just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like this idea that we were discussing at Render about like the luck surface area and things like that. Like
Mhm.
how luck in itself, like it always seems like ephemeral sometimes, but it's not sometimes too, right? Like it's almost like it's not even a 50-50, it's like a 70-30, because like some people just get that opportunity to make their own luck. It might not work out a certain way, maybe the way that they dreamed it, but it still kind of like happens. Sean, it's really great to have you on the show. Gonna get to your question right now. But again, we're kind of like in the question and answer part of the show. This has flowed so smoothly that I didn't really have that much opportunity to segment it out. So we're just gonna keep having fun. But this is Sean's question. He says, looking back, what has been your biggest surprise in becoming a software engineer?
Um, I'm trying to, I think this is my biggest. Thanks, Sean. That's a good question. I think it was how human everybody is. And I know it's funny to say, but this is touching back on what we talked about before, where I had these stereotypes of what folks acted like and looked like in software engineering. And it was the Dennis Nedry is a character in Jurassic Park. He's the person who brought the whole park down. The big guy who, I don't know the name of the dinosaur, but it like sprayed him in the face with the poison or whatever. Anyway, he is the type of guy that I think of when I used to think of software engineering. Just this person plugging away at all his little terminal things, and they wear these Coke bottle glasses. He drinks Diet Coke and just sit in a room, and you don't know how to socialize. And when you do socialize, it's like super awkward, and everybody just kind of wants to like get out of the room because it's not really a fun conversation or interesting conversation. I was so surprised at how human folks are, and like how that's a weird thing to say because you're human even if you are a nerd, right? But I was just surprised at like the diversity of personalities, that there's so many people that I could I'm seeing Anthony in the chat, that I could relate to at all different levels. And I'm like, it's not it that, and the fact that there's so many meetings in software engineering. I was like, it's funny to joke about now, but I was so excited to go into engineering because I was like, oh, great. Now I don't have to have meetings all day. And in my life, I've never had this many meetings. And this is so many meetings. So it's just like so much talking to people. I thought everybody was going to be in silos and just like coding away. And all I do all day is talk to people. I barely have time to code. So that's my answer, Sean.
It is so funny that you say that about the meetings because it's like, I have people who have said similar things like, you know what, I definitely want to live whether it's project product management and go do cybersecurity or do software engineering because like I just want less meetings and like it's shocker, right?
Right. I'm like, because before I got in, I was like, what would you even have to meet about? Or what do you like? What are you still coding about? Isn't the product, isn't it finished? Like, I'm looking at Netflix right now. I'm watching Netflix. What else do you have to do? Like, why are you still coding? Now I see. I've learned so much.
Especially like when it's so fascinating to me too because it's like there's so many problems that seem like very obvious. Anthony says the most difficult coding language is English. And it's like it's so wild to me that it could take like 5 meetings just to get to a very simple answer because like too many times like people don't really say what they mean, and sometimes like the answer I don't even think like it's designed that way, but people get in a meeting, they decide something, they understand the reasoning behind it, and then they go meet with a different set of people, and then they have a whole different conversation, and they spin up new problems, and then it comes together again, and then later you then say, wait, are we persistent the data or not? Right? That becomes like a decision process in itself, where ultimately by the time you come back, it's like, oh, this was the decision and this was what we were gonna do. But it's like this was never obvious. Like we never decided that we're gonna do this. That we're gonna do.
Can you go downstairs, please? Bye. Shut the door, please. Sorry.
We have a special guest. um, yeah, but it's so fascinating. And speaking about communicating, I think that goes to Anthony's next question. So he was saying, what's one thing that I can do to not sound like a Nigerian prince when sending messages to recruiters and hiring managers?
I love this question. Yeah. So, okay. It's a nuanced answer. Okay. It's a nuanced answer. So I think that you, Yes, he says hi. So I think that it's important to be building your relationships. Taylor Desson says this all the time. You shouldn't be building your network only when you're looking for a job. You should be building your network so that when you are looking for a job, you have that network. And that's how I did. I didn't have that advice when I was learning to code and when I was building my network. Looking back, I'm like, wow, this is such great advice. But I was just doing it naturally, just trying to make friends, honestly. And I think that's the approach that you should do is just like try to build a community. Don't try to build a community. Sorry. Just just build it, because I feel like people put too much emphasis on this whole strategy and like, okay, I got to do this and I got to do that to build my network, and I got to message this person this many times a week. It shouldn't be like that. Like that's you're doing too much. Like you should just be working on having these natural friendships. And then when it comes time to getting a job, then it's just like, hey, I'm not pinging you about your garden today. I'm just pinging you about this job that I saw. And then it's a more natural flow into the conversation. So you will definitely, if you've been building your network, you will be able to more seamlessly get introduced to folks who are hiring managers and recruiters. And hopefully you're continuing to build your network with those hiring managers and recruiters so that the conversation is like, we already know that you're not a Nigerian prince. You can go ahead. Now, let's say that you don't have that network, but you are actively looking for a job right now. I think that it's very important to stand out as a human. And I keep saying this, it sounds so simple. It sounds so obvious, like me having a human body automatically makes me human and automatically makes me stand out as human. Negative. That's not the case, especially in this day and age where one, AI is a thing. And it's not like people think that you're a fake person or you're a scammer automatically, but people have to be in tune of that. But the bigger thing, the most common thing is that most people who are looking for jobs, the vast majority of people, I'm not even going to say most people, like the vast majority of people, when they're looking for jobs, are literally just like spraying their resume and seeing if they get any responses, not customized. I actually reached out to somebody a couple of days ago to ask if they wanted to fill a position or apply for a position on one of the teams here at Netflix. And they sent me a canned resume with like nothing that had to do with the actual job that was posted. And, gently like, maybe we should customize this a little bit. But most people are doing that. Like, even if you get reached out to about a role, just sending like this very generic thing and nothing that tells that you're a human or anything like that. So you need to do this in your own way because you are a different human than anybody on this call, than anybody else in the chat, than anybody else you know. You need to figure out who you are as a human and then figure out human ways to do that. Some ideas of the things that I did, for example, are I established myself as a complete being outside of just tech. So it's very rare that I actually post a tech tip. I actually posted one for the first time probably in like a year, but I don't post like tech tip. I mostly post about my son and I post about like random things that have happened to me throughout the day. And like I said, a lot of the conversation, all of my friends are in tech for the most part, and I've met them all through like tech Twitter and that kind of thing, or work. But the things that we talk about have nothing to do with tech. So it's just me being a human. Not that I'm avoiding conversations about tech because we do talk a lot about tech as well. But I'm not making that my full personality. I'm not making, oh, I know React, I know GraphQL, my entire personality. I'm just going out to make friends. So when you're reaching out to hiring managers and recruiters, make sure that so one thing that this is my little trick. I'll give it to y'all because you're family now. I use video. And what video does, and this is, I use it in my emails. So if I'm trying to reach out, let's say that you have a job posting and I don't know you and I don't know anybody who knows you, I'm not just going to send over a portfolio with a block of code that you're never going to look through. I'm not just going to send over a resume that you're never going to look at, or you're just going to send through a system that's just going to again, not as a human. It's just going to like go through all the bullet points as a system and not apply a human lens to it. I'm going to send a video that's customized and say, I'll address you by name, and I'll say, hey, I'm really interested in this role. I made Loom is amazing for this. Great call out, Sean. And Loom is a good one, and also Vidyard. What I like about Vidyard is that you can see when people open the video, how many times they've watched it, and if they forward it to other people too. So I used this when I was in sales. I would include a video and I would break down the project from the perspective of the user. So it shows, and this is especially important to me as a front end engineer. I really focus on UX. I built this tool to show you, let's say that you're a manager at Netflix. I built this tool to show you that I really pay attention to performance, because I know that Netflix, I'm not building a movie app. I could be building any app, but I know that Netflix cares about performance. So I built this app with performance in mind. Check out how this happens when I do this infinite scrolling or this lazy loading. I put a lot of emphasis on accessibility, because I know your customers have diverse abilities. And so I want to show you that I use this library that really leans into accessibility. And I'm pointing out all the things that I want them to see, because I know they're never going to go through all those components. I know they're never going to go through all of those lines on my resume, but they might watch a 2-minute video that is addressed to them. And then I'll see when they open it. And so because I'm adding this customized touch, I'm doing things that allow them to recognize my face, get to see me as a human, also get to see a little bit of my personality. And then they get to envision this world with me in it. And they get to imagine me on the Zoom call with them and like, oh, this girl, she cares about performance. She cares about accessibility. So, now they're starting to like come into my world. So that's my big trick, and it's worked. And I do that not only when I'm sending over my portfolio, I do that when I'm sending my thank you emails too. So my thank you emails are not a block of text. It's a video where I say, hey, thank you for the interview. It was really funny when you said this and that. Like, I'm really looking forward to working on your team. By the way, that one thing that I missed in our take-home exercise, I did it. So let me just show you real quick, or whatever. But yeah, it helps you to stand out as a human, and you have a customized message for every person that you send it to.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I've heard like people say, stand out and things like that, but never broken down that way before.
Oh, it's the sales. It's the sales. You got to stand out.
I actually was gonna say that. I was gonna say that because and maybe that's a good question to almost like do the second to the last, right? Is how much does your sales background play in your career today?
A lot. And I talk about this a lot. I've been putting this off for months because stuff just keeps coming up, but I've been wanting to make a video series about sales tips for people who are interviewing or something like that. Like just how to leverage all the stuff that I've learned in sales and apply it to your tech career and like interviews and things like that. But it is so, it comes in handy so much in everything. I was talking to one of my colleagues today about, because they were saying that they were going off the beaten path with something that design did. This is an engineer. The design person had like very set ways that they wanted this design to look. They had other opinions. And I was like, well, you need to sell them. You need to sell them on why we're going off the beaten path, because we know what's better for the user. And so I was like coaching them on how to make the sale. But yes, this is like, it comes in when you're looking for jobs. It comes in handy when you're on the job. It comes in handy when working with that kid you just saw. So yeah, it comes in a lot. That said, though, I gave a talk earlier this year on how to leverage your transferable skills. I feel like there's something to take from everything. Like sales happened to be my path. I think if I was, before that, I was actually a teacher. And I took those skills from teaching into my sales career. And I continue to take all those same skills into engineering. I think anything that you're doing, volunteering, parenting, yeah, anything, pretty much any field that you're in, you have skills that make you an amazing engineer, product manager, designer, whatever in tech, you just have to figure out how to unlock those skills and how to apply it to your job.
Amazing. So I think, one of the things that you had said was the importance, like, some people would choose this industry and career for money, right? So what does the money look like for
The
people who
money.
are curious? Yeah, right. Like, so someone who's starting out as a junior engineer, what can they expect to make? As they kind of like get mid, senior, what does that look like from a pay range perspective?
See, this is a tough question for me to answer because I I negotiated and I was comfortable with negotiation. I'm still comfortable with negotiation because I've had practice with it in sales. But I would say if you don't have practice with it, if you're not comfortable with it, get comfortable with it. When I started, I took a pay cut um, because I moved from sales to engineering. I started at like 97 or something, which I think is high for juniors because I remember them wanting to pay me a lot less, and I was like, listen, it's either this or you can keep me as a salesperson, and like I can't go lower than like you know, so I started out higher than what they wanted to offer. And again, this was like 2020. So I don't know. Maybe they're paying more, but I would say it depends. It depends on how you can sell yourself. I want to, I guess this is a senior engineer answer. It depends. But like, I want to say you can do whatever you want. Like, there's nobody telling you you can't. I don't want to be the person to tell you that you can't make 300,000 starting out. Um, Maybe you can do it. Like, I think you know what? Okay, let's take a step back. I don't think that you should have this answer in mind. I think that because nobody told me that I couldn't go from sales to engineering. And even if they did, I would just be like, you can't do it. I can do it. So, like, I don't want anybody to take an answer and be like, oh, well, this is the max that I'll be able to make, or, Shaundai negotiated, so this is the highest that I can do. No, that's not true. You can do better than I did. So you can do whatever you want. I would say don't accept less than, I don't know. It depends on your situation, but like I wouldn't accept less than like 70, 60, or 70. But yeah, if you're I don't know, because if you this is hard. This is hard. I don't know. I don't know, man. But like my answer is to shoot for the highest that you can get. And don't let anybody put any cap on what you think you can achieve, because you can achieve better than anybody that has ever done it before. Let that
Yeah.
be let that be it.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So I think we're a little over time. I know everybody's having fun. I'm having fun too. But I don't want to hold you any longer. But this is typically the point where where you can shout out your board of directors,
Mm.
plug any upcoming books or movies that you got coming out.
Hey, I love it. There's so many people to shout out. Shout out to everybody that is on this call. I see a lot of great friends in the chat. Um, and yesterday, my good friend Mark Thompson, he goes by Mark Texan in the streets, did an amazing keynote, like the best keynote that I've ever seen. So he did it at that conference yesterday. I want everybody to go back and watch that. Um, Plug for myself is I'm working on a workshop, and I need y'all to push me. I'm pushing myself. I've just got a lot going on, but I'm working on a workshop with Kent C. Dodds. Shout out to Kent and his amazing epic web stuff, because I've learned so much from him, but he's a great friend and he's given me opportunities to partner with him. So working on a TypeScript workshop as part of the epic web platform, but it's going to be its own solo course when that course is released. ts4js.com. So this is a TypeScript course for JavaScript developers who want to use TypeScript at their companies. This isn't just like, your everyday side project TypeScript. This is like, I'm working at an enterprise, I'm working at a small company, a large company. I'm working with other people, and I want to learn TypeScript, and I want to learn why TypeScript. So that's where you go. tsforjs.com. Those are my
So,
plugs.
and is this kind of like for any specific, like, I want to say like grade level,
Um,
or like
oh, that's a good
even newbies can jump in?
That's a good question. So I would say have a little bit of like know the basics of JavaScript, basics of React, but I really pride myself on being able to explain things in a way that anybody can understand. And I love having my non-technical family members at my talks, and they say that they can understand it. So don't feel like you need years and years of experience. Like a couple months of a JavaScript course. Thank you
All
for that.
right, that sounds amazing. I'm just gonna pin this just for anyone who wants to who wants to go check it out. Thank you so much, Shaundai. This has been absolutely amazing. I know we kind of like got started with not knowing if we were live, and I think Marisa really helped us out there. That was amazing. This was a really amazing chat. Shout out to Anthony. You're definitely on next. Shout out, Sean. It's really great to have you. Thank you so much, Edmund. Definitely been tracking this. Anthony Key as well. Really, really great show tonight. This has been an amazing podcast episode with Shaundai. Once again, it's going to be replayed on YouTube and everywhere else, so you can find it if you missed it. Oh, Edmund has one final question. We'll take it and then we'll wrap it up. So, how does referrals work in the tech industry? Ooh, this is a good one.
It is a good one. Again, it depends and it varies by company. So it varies by company. I did a video recently with some tips about referrals because I get a lot of requests for referrals, like multiple a day. I'm talking about, and since I posted that video, I haven't gotten many, which is good though because a lot of it is it doesn't make sense. So the universal truth is that you should not ask for a referral from somebody that you don't know. Referrals are meant to be the person who is referring you is meant to be advocating for you and saying that I can say that I can vouch for this person and say that this person is going to do a good job and I stand behind it. I'll let you go ahead and interview them and evaluate their skills and their fit for the team and the company. But I can personally vouch and say that this person is good. It's not for somebody to say, oh, we went to the same college just in different decades. Can you make sure that this hiring manager at your company gets my resume? No, because I don't know you. So that's not the way that it should be. I know that's some folks at some companies where referrals you get like a money bonus if you refer people. Sometimes people will go through with that strategy. That's not good. It does a really bad disservice to you and degrades the trust that the team has for you when you refer somebody who you don't know and who doesn't know you. It can go really wrong if that person ends up being like somebody bad. I actually had a situation at a previous company where somebody referred somebody and that person ended up getting fired because they were stealing money from the company. Like the worst thing that you could do. Worst thing that you could do. And it like opened up a lot of information about our like sales process that we were missing, but like they were stealing a lot. And so it can go really wrong. It can go great, but it can not. It can easily not. So again, it should be referrals to people that you do know. Netflix, we don't get bonuses for referring somebody and for them getting in. So if I refer you or if anybody refers you into Netflix, just know that that person cares about you because they're going outside of their day job and they're not getting anything back. And they're helping you to get into the company. That means that they really can stand for what you're doing. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Is like my big piece of advice is to make make real friends. But also when you're asking for referrals, like don't ask for referrals from people who don't know you. Also be understanding because even if you do know that person, if they can't vouch for you, if they haven't seen your work, or if they have like criticisms of your work, they may not want to refer you. Or if they don't feel like they have enough clout with the team, like they're too new or they don't really know that hiring manager or that team, they may not want to refer you. So be understanding about it and understand that like not every company, not just the fact that you have an acquaintance or an association with somebody at a company or you follow somebody that's at a company doesn't mean that that's going to be somebody who can refer you.
That's very true. Yeah. That's very true and very helpful. And thank you once again, Marisa, for helping us out in the beginning. Yeah, I think Edmund definitely liked that answer. Oh, it's worth thousands. Yeah, send it. I'm not on the board, but I'm a manager for this podcast.
I'm taking it all.
All right. Thanks everyone. This has been amazing. We look forward to seeing you again next time.